Welcome everyone, welcome to Life Sciences Trends. This is the first episode of our podcast. We have the lovely Pilar over here, who is the CEO and founder of iExpand. And just so that the audience can have a better understanding of the work that you do and that you're involved in, can you please give an introduction of yourself and what the services are at iExpand?
Hello everybody, and Alan, thanks a lot for having me here today. It's an honor to be part of the first chapter. A bit about me, as you can hear from my accent, I'm originally from Spain, but my company is based here in the UK. Over the last 20 years, I have been working on commercializing technology across these continents. I have done this for corporations like Cisco Systems, clinical corporations like Wolters Kluwer, and in the last 5 years, I've done it for myself when I founded iExpand. Now, before I go on why I founded iExpand, something that I realized, in the last 20 years is that it's not always the best product that becomes a commercial success. It's normally the product, but also the business model, how that company goes to market, where they go and why, with what, with whom, and how to make money. And I realized that with the emergence of cloud and the emergence of digital companies, digital health companies, the gap between the product and commercialization was becoming bigger because it was very product focused. And these are strategies that work well 10 years ago when there were not so many similar companies, but it's not something that works currently when a lot of companies could be similar and might not be needed because the market is saturated. So in that spirit, I founded iExpand, focus on health tech in EMEA and on commercialization to help companies, startups and scale-ups translate the product into a business. And from my career as well, I had the pleasure of working a lot in emerging markets as well. I've been doing national deals with companies, but also I've been in the middle of the desert or in Juba, trying to connect, to a satellite. So I've seen, like the differences, that context and capacity and the people you have around make in delivering healthcare. And that's why as well, part of our approach to commercialization is to look at commercialization from a global perspective. And in that spirit, I founded iExpand. Our core customers are basically companies, startups and scale-ups, although sometimes we work for more established businesses. And we do triage or stress tests, for portfolio managers and family offices. And something that became an anecdote, somebody asked us to deliver a workshop 4 years ago, has now become also a go-to-market program. So we also work with hubs and accelerators in upskilling the startups in the commercialization journey. So far, we have done this for more than 450 companies, startups that have been through the program. And all of that and even more is going to be in a book that's coming now.
Oh, wonderful. It sounds like some really interesting and exciting work. And I think one thing you said which really resonates with me, the fact that having a product is one thing, but it is one part of the equation and there are other factors. You mentioned business models. A simple analogy is kind of like, for example, in any business, you can have a product, but if the marketing isn't necessarily the best, then it doesn't necessarily mean immediate success. But you mentioned that you have a book that's coming up. Can you talk a bit more about what the book's about and some of the things that you're going to, touch upon within that book?
Yes. The book is a bit, I think everything is a process. When I started to work on the program for the startups, I realized there were always the same questions coming up. And people wanted to hear more, so I thought, let's put it all in a book. But in a book where people can actually, the founders can actually self-help and upskill themselves, So the book title is Cash or Crash. How to launch a digital health
it's a good name.
Business successfully. I chose the name 2 years ago, so I'm not trying to, because those of us who have been around for a long time know that the definition of a business is something that creates value.
Exactly, yeah.
It's something that people want to buy. An entrepreneur creates a business. Let's say that a lot of companies have binge in the last few years on cheap money. So they didn't have to prove business fundamentals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was only a matter of time till we've been in the situation we are today, although we didn't expect it to be so drastic. But anyway, what my point here is like a business has to be viable, commercially viable, and then you will be fine. You will navigate through recessions, you will navigate because it's something that the market wants. And that's what the book is about. The book is not about so much product innovation. I think we have quite a lot of that. It's about basically how can we translate that product into a viable business? How can we start prototyping commercialization strategies that are going to de-risk and remove uncertainty for the choices that an entrepreneur has to make, like where you go, with what? Will there be somebody there who wants to buy my product? How will they buy it? Is that affordable for me? Is that affordable for them? How will I execute afterwards? Because if we look at the moment, I saw a report from Harvard, 95% of the business will fail, of the innovations. That number tells me we're doing something wrong. It's how we go to market is part of the problem. And we need to start removing that uncertainty, de-risking our choices, and prototyping with the same passion that people prototype the product. You look, I mean, sorry to mention it, I'm like, just a commercial example, McDonald's.
Yeah.
The innovation of McDonald's is not the burger. I think most of us will agree, okay, it's tasty, but it might not be the best burger ever, right? But the innovation is how they franchise the model. The business, the go-to-market strategy was what differentiated McDonald's from other better, probably, options.
Yeah.
And this is a bit the thing. If we want to be impactful, we need to make sure people adopt our solution. And the book is about that. The risking, reducing the time, because everything will be on one book, all the questions that you want to ask and never dare to ask, and the structure for you to start doing that upskilling on your own terms yourself.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because there's two points that I gather from what you just explained from your book is that there's two elements. There's one, making sure that the business is valuable from the perspective of actually delivering value, but there's then also the other aspect of having a sort of like a strategic set of choices which works well for that system. With like with the McDonald's example, it kind of reminds me of a very classical case study, which is Southwestern Airlines, where essentially this airline company has organized itself in a way which they've made several choices to be a highly competitive budget airline.
Mm-hmm.
But other airlines can't really copy them because in order to copy them effectively, they would have to copy their whole system. And I think it's a similar aspect where, likewise within the life science and healthcare field, if you can solve the problem of actually making sure you're delivering value and also approaching the market in a way which you're making a set of choices which is harder for other companies and other competitors to emulate, you're putting yourself in quite a strong position where you're, one, delivering value, but you're also quite hard to compete against, essentially.
Yeah, no, and absolutely, it's the competitive edge. It can lie on the innovation, the business model, how you execute, operational excellence. There's so many aspects, and people only look product, and then they launch, and the other parts are missing.
Yeah.
So what happens? Cash or crash.
Yeah.
The balance goes to the south, unfortunately. And the thing is, why I decided to do it this way with this book, why the book is unique, is because it's based on the framework we've been sharing with the startups as well. And the framework is not really based on telling them what to do, you know, because everybody is different, comes at a different point of time. I think sometimes consultancy overall and some approaches that we see in accelerators, they also suffer from something called a snapshot problem. Yeah, that person on the moment of time did this way, but it might no longer apply to you. Like business models based on direct to consumer that work 10 or 8 years ago in the US, they're not working now because now it's become more expensive to acquire customers. So we have to see it in the context of your time, of your market, on the possibilities and adapt it. And who can do that better than anybody else? Entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And why? Because they know the product better than anybody else. And they have the passion to make it work. So instead of us telling them what to do, the whole methodology is based on questions and answers, explaining why those things are important, and giving them some ideas as to how they might find their own answer to those problems. It's opening the eyes, giving the clarity, giving the structure for them to start prototyping. Because at the end of the day, it's like it's like activating the entrepreneurial DNA of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And this is massive. It's like in the same way that we are activating the patients with digital health to be involved, we do it that way. And I think that will work much better.
I think it's a good point. And just touching on the point you made about the importance of actually understanding the landscape of the business at that point in time, it's quite similar to the case of personalized medicine, where even for a certain disease, like let's say ovarian cancer or breast cancer, you can have someone who has the same outwardly appearance of a disease, but when you're actually looking at the underlying ways of actually treating them based on the specific person, the way to approach treating them could be completely different, based on whether they have certain mutations. I think everyone's probably heard of like the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes, for example, or even there may be cases, for example, where let's say someone has no one in their family that has breast cancer in the past, but based on their whole genomic profile, using like polygenic risk scores, they have an elevated risk to that disease, where it might be more appropriate to start screening them more early. But yeah, pivoting slightly, as someone who's working with several health tech companies and helping them to scale and to really deliver impact, what would you say, personally, from your perspective, are some of the emerging or new life sciences trends currently in the industry?
Yeah, this is like, I thank you a lot because you did already an introduction of what I think is one of the main trends. There are so many things, and sometimes, when there's so much noise and so much things, sometimes it's very difficult to select. The way I see it is, to me personally, the biggest trend and the one that will have the biggest impact is precision medicine. Yeah. And why? Is because we are all different. We all express genes different. We are also we have different susceptibilities, and we're finding out more and more about that. And now, why do I mention it now? Now is the right time as well, because for precision medicine, because finally we have done the genomic mapping, and it's affordable actually to do it at the scale. This is number one. So we can find out more about us, what makes, each of us from inside in the deeper level. But also, this has been made possible by something called big data / computing / cloud. Yeah, that's what we can do and automate this artificial intelligence. All these technologies make sure that what they do very well is they automate, and we can ingest and we can derive insights from data much faster than ever in a way that will not be humanly possible. So all those things these two things combined made the possibility of not only finding out our genetic makeup, but also following us outside the clinic, in environment, what you eat, what you do, etc., what is off-label, and finding finally why one person is more likely to develop a disease than other. When we will discover that, we will cure cancer, for instance, or some cancers. We're not there yet, but I'm really, bullish, and I really excited about the prospects of that. I mean, discovering the digital biomarkers, for instance, that, digital biomarkers, for those who are new to that, it's the digital footprints that your disease leaves on you, so you can follow that. And it's really cool. It's like a detective. You can see, these guys are interacting with each other with these drugs. Oh, it's not working for this because X, Y, Z. Or likewise, is things like cancer that you mentioned, is like cancer knows us very well. to the deepest level because it's part of us.
Yeah.
It's something gone wrong inside us. It's not a bacteria or something. So people will say, oh, we have to fight cancer coming from outside. No, it's us.
Yeah.
So it knows our body very well. It knows where to hide, where to do that. If we have these digital prints, we can follow those breadcrumbs. And we might find out if that person is more likely to develop metastasis, other things that we don't know. But you think about this, Alan. Why I'm so excited about this is because this could even redefine how we see some diseases in the same way that molecular profiling redefined cancer stratification. We might discover that things are working in different ways than we expected.
Yeah.
And the other part where I'm really, really excited about it is because all these digital biomarkers mean that we will have connected devices, which means that those connected devices could come to wherever the people is, which means that maybe, and we are getting there, we will start including a good sample of the population, because at the moment it's not inclusive. And so it means that we might be able to spot things that in some groups, because of gender, because of race, because of socioeconomic background, we are not doing well. So this is really incredible.
Yeah, no, it is definitely exciting. I think for myself as well, when I think about the prospects of precision medicine, it gets me excited less so from the business side of things, but more so just in terms of impact, just knowing that, for example, for one specific disease, there could be potentially hundreds, even thousands of different profiles of different people in terms of what actually they will respond to, what actually is most appropriate for them. And yeah, it's definitely quite an exciting field for me. And it's interesting you touched upon the point about studies being done in like certain demographics and certain populations. Because one thing I've been realizing, and it kind of links to AI as well, because one of the use cases that AI has been used for is trying to find the right populations, even for recruitment, for example, for clinical trials. There have been some voices within the space and industry who have been talking about how there are lots of improvement that can be done within recruitment for clinical trials and finding the right patient populations. Yes, I think it definitely is an area where we can see more development, and that just makes me even more excited because it means that more can be done within a field.
No, it's and now the question is, if we are not doing that, and I will speak to the camera, why are we not doing that? Yeah, it's always about asking the right whys. Yeah,
asking the right questions.
Because now it's possible. So if we don't do it, we have to know why, and we have to ask why.
Yeah, asking the right strategic questions. And on that point, actually, so I think we both spoke at an event not too long ago on some of the advances of AI on drug discovery and development. I think this is a massive, for lack of a buzzword. I've heard so many of my friends in other firms across professional services talking about AI being an emerging trend within life sciences. What would you say are some of the things which excite you about the applications of AI in, let's say, drug development or drug discovery?
Of course, it's like there is always the headlines, and there is always what it means. Yeah. I will explain to you how I see it in plain language. Yeah, like for pharma, the core business of pharma is developing drugs and doing that in the most cost-effective way, because a lot of pharma drugs, developments will fail, and you have to make money with the ones that do not fail. No, so understanding that, this is the core business of pharma. We discussed before precision medicine. This is what really is very interesting for me as a potential patient, but of course, this is the core business. So what are the applications that we're seeing right here, right now, in AI, artificial intelligence in pharma? And if we look at what artificial intelligence does for pharma, which is, it automates, it makes things, possible in a faster way. It's like something that ingests information, processes the information, and does it to you in a faster way that it would be impossible. So you use computation to do that. So One of the use cases that pharma uses for drug discovery, I want to call it discovery, it could be drug repurposing, for instance.
Okay,
Yeah. You have like a poultry, imagine a poultry full of compounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like cooking, yeah? You always cook the same dish, but what about mixing things in a different way to create something new that's useful? So this is number one. This is the business case of a lot of startups doing that. They use this, combine it. Some of them, they are even doing very cool things. They are doing that in silico. They're combining in silico, you know, fully digitalized. So this is one area. And this is what's behind as well, you know, this computational capability of doing these combinations with the discovery in really like short time of, you know, the COVID vaccine. Things were repurposed from previous. Somebody was talking, oh, one is for monkeys, the other thing is RNN, but they were repurposing. They were looking into the poultry and seeing what can we use, what can we combine, yeah? But obviously, another part is discovering new molecules, yeah? That's very important because, unfortunately, we still have a lot of diseases where there is no cure for. And sometimes it goes down to the point that we don't understand much how it works. Neurology, for instance, is one of the fields where we have a lot of people with dementia, Alzheimer's. People don't know still very well how it works, how it doesn't work, and how can we use, I would say, AI, artificial intelligence / digital health solutions for that. Now, you know that a lot of trials fail, but what many people are not aware is that a lot of trials fail because of design, but also because of patient recruitment.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a lot of diseases that are very difficult to diagnose because the current biomarkers only allow us to identify when it's already progressed. We mentioned Alzheimer's, yeah?
Yeah.
By following those people, you know, like with connected devices, we might identify new digital footprints, you know, biomarkers that can give way for us to kind of figure out, okay, this is early onset of Alzheimer, early onset of dementia. And there are some very interesting studies going on at the moment with Roche, et cetera, that's proving quite positive, yeah? More research has to be done, but if we could identify, well, first of all, identify the patients that are likely to get early onset of Alzheimer's, getting on trials, then we can then design drugs to maybe stop or delay, you know, the progression at the same time that we will understand the disease a bit better. So this is the area as well where it's called digital companions, you know, like that could be very interesting. Another area that some traditional companies are working on is on developing digital therapeutics, yeah? So it's kind of, it could be a combination of a traditional therapeutic with some digital intervention. But some of them, companies like Kylie, is like they are even becoming digital medicines in themselves. Yeah? So I already given you 3 cases, and of course, if you look at the common denominator of those cases is computational capacity, AI, but also in the last 2 cases, what's linking all that is something called real-world evidence.
Yeah.
And because it's like, yeah, I mean, it's really like combining real-world evidence with RCTs, and the data is extremely, extremely powerful because we sort out the problem of a snapshot, yeah? I mean, somebody explained to me the difference between real-world evidence and the one that you get, the data points that you get from a randomized clinical trial is that it's just like observing, you know, a tiger in the zoo.
Yeah,
and observing a tiger in the wild.
In the natural world,
yes,
exactly.
So
and
you get
and kind of confirming that, oh, so this does confirm that that's how the tiger actually acts.
And the advantage of that is that you don't need to have tigers. You can have a whole zoo because you can include a lot of different people, a lot of different entities that at the moment is not possible. So both of them will complement each other very well because, of course, randomized controlled trials are more controlled.
Yeah.
They're more, we need that. We're talking about medicines, yeah? But the other one is really just going to give us the flavor of what's really going on, and maybe we can discover very, very interesting things, from a molecular level as well.
Yeah, definitely adding that flavor and reinforcement of what we believe to be true from the randomized controlled trials. And I really like the perspective you gave, because I think many people, when they think about AI within R&D and drug discovery and development, I think some people tend to think that it's only something that can be used at the very initial stages in terms of trying to identify certain potential targets or pathways that can be used, or potential drug particles that might be used to create a drug. But honestly, AI is a technology and a tool which can be used pretty much throughout the whole of that discovery and development timeline, from the very beginning, very early on, to the later stages of discovery, to the early stages of development, and throughout the whole actual time of the clinical trials as well. And even technically after phase 3, and I guess we could describe it as phase 4, when you're doing that whole looking at real world evidence and getting data insights from there. And something which does really touch home for me and does kind of excite me is that use case of being able to look at data, whether it's real world evidence or even data from clinical trials, and use like AI technology to analyze certain populations and to identify if there's actually a disease which is already approved for one disease that can actually be applied very successfully to another disease, which we already know is relatively safe because it's already approved. And that is something which has been done and successfully with AI in some cases. But yeah, it's definitely an exciting field. And I'm happy to see more and more advances each day and each season within life sciences, and also with AI, and also across the whole landscape. And on that point, I guess just looking at the life sciences and healthcare industry as a whole, in your own personal opinion, what would you say is probably one of the greatest challenges? And if you're giving an unlimited budget,
okay.
like a bank account, which basically like a cheat code, you can like press press enter, and like 10 billion was added or something like that. What would you try to do to address that challenge?
Yes, on a technical level, I would say that the challenge of all these things, I really love when you said that artificial intelligence is just a tool.
Yeah.
And if we don't have a very specific use case, it's just a buzzword. Yeah, because we have to make something impactful out of that. It's like a knife. You can use it to cut bread or to kill somebody. Very different use cases, yeah?
Or surgery or something.
Or just because it looks very nice on your, next to that poultry we discussed. But the thing is, if I were given, a limited budget, yes, you said it, yeah?
Yeah.
So I would just improve the core issue of healthcare, which is called, it's about access.
Yeah.
And it's about affordability. Yes, because the issue of healthcare for a lot of countries is poverty. It's no more, no less. We're talking petabytes in some countries, some privileged countries like ours, but a lot of people still don't even have electricity, yeah? They don't even have hospitals. They don't have access to things, which means that all this reality that we discovered, like precision medicine, whatever, there's no medical data on those populations. They will be excluded by algorithmic level, apart from poverty, from algorithmic level. So this is really something I'm very passionate about. So, in reflecting on that, because a lot of voices these days say that look at healthcare as a cost. And something changed in the last decades, because healthcare used to be seen as an investment on the future and because it has an impact on the socioeconomic prospect of a country. And I'll give you an example. Not so long ago, after the Second World War, Europe was in tatters. Japan was fully destroyed. It was then that they launched the free universal healthcare services. The NHS was born then, in fact, in 1948. Japan Norway, a lot of countries that went through the war invested when they were broke in providing free healthcare to people. And this is a reminder for those of those people who are saying, no, it has to be seen as a business. It's an investment on the future, like it's an investment of a school. Nobody questions the schools, yeah?
Yeah.
Why are we questioning hospitals? Fast forward, things have changed, and Thailand, after the Asian crisis, 2002, decided that they wanted, to offer free universal service, health service, to their citizens. It was an outcry. When the World Bank was against it, everybody was against it. They still went ahead, no matter what. These days, it's like 95% of the population has free access to healthcare. It's been considered as access. The World Bank has apologized formally to Thailand because it's been demonstrated that public healthcare, and again, it's about execution, is more effective and cheaper than privatized healthcare. And if not, just look at the US. It's a very expensive system, not necessarily with the best outcome. So I would make healthcare more accessible, like access to services, and make them affordable as well.
Yeah.
There is a way, but everything has to be seen in context.
Yeah, it's actually seen in context, and
but likewise, it's like, and since this is about for startups, for innovators, something that we need to see as well is that when you think about launching something, always think about how can people afford your solution. What can we do? Like health systems need to also look, we're talking about precision medicine, how can we make it affordable? Because the more we will discover, the more we will stratify, the more things we will have to bring to the market. So at one point there was going to be some expense that we need to make, yeah?
Yeah.
So, and this is an open question that's going to define our generation. Because we're getting older, but not necessarily healthier. The population is getting bigger. Perfect, storm. And this is the question for you guys, and girls, like anybody. Okay, we will discover more. We will discover more stratifications of disease, which means that we need to bring more drugs into the market, more things into the market. How can possibly a health system afford all that? How can pharma afford to bring drugs that will have less public, like orphan drugs, things like that, limited populations? But there are some studies that show that in the long run, it will work out. But then also we need to redefine, should healthcare be run as a business? Or should healthcare be seen as an investment? And that's why there's a lot of debate at the moment as to which are the models. I mean, do we have to have an ROI in primary schools? Exactly. Why do we have to have an ROI to provide care?
Yeah.
I leave it at there. I mean, it's like there's proponents in different ways. To me, what counts is the outcomes. And at the moment, what the outcomes are showing is the privatized systems, out-of-pocket systems provide the outcomes are worse, basically, than in public health systems, yeah? But it's not because less people have access, it's that they actually, privatized systems cost more money in the long run because the incentive is on output. For-profit hospitals, etc., you want more treatments, you want more... So we have also to look into those concepts and see how we bring them. But likewise, from an innovator level, when you make a solution for a specific market, with a specific market in mind, always think how that translates into other markets. Yeah. Because maybe you don't need so many whistles and things. Maybe you need to adapt it. I was speaking to an entrepreneur from Ghana, and he called us Internet of Dumb Things, because he's doing this supply chain, monitoring, but with 2G and SMS.
Oh, interesting.
The payments happen, by text message, We have to think about that. We have to be including solar power.
Yeah.
to go to remote. We have to think the mountain comes to you or we go to the mountain. You have medicalized drones like Zipline that they launched for first time, 6 years ago in Rwanda, in Ghana, and now NASA is catching on. So first Rwanda, 6 years later NASA. Yeah. So let's be creative and look what's happening elsewhere, because a lot of the solutions that are going to come for most of the population might not come from your market. So this is a bit, if I had an unlimited amount of money, I'll provide, I will hospitals or mobile units. I'll make sure the services were affordable, which is not free per se, but affordable, you know. And that will set, a baseline, because we need that. And we definitely need to digitalize a lot of things, because we need to start including data from different populations, countries, groups, so that they are not excluded.
I think it's I think it's really good ambition, and especially because, yes, in order for, I guess, pharmaceutical business to be viable, they need to be able to make that a profit. But it's really about, thinking creatively about how we can both drive that value, have a system where things are viable financially, but also where we're actually making sure that the very core thing of access and affordability is being met. And it doesn't always have to be a zero-sum game where someone's losing, someone's gaining. I believe there are ways, especially the more so we ideate, to address both of those both sides of the coin, and really, maximize access and affordability. It's interesting. Your friend you spoke to, who used the term Internet of Dumb Things.
I love it.
It could be a case that yes, you're using 2G, yes, you're using SMS technology, but at the end of the day, if they're using that technology, whether it's relatively new or relatively not new, if they're using that technology to solve a large problem, a large unmet needs, and drastically improving access to healthcare within those set markets, that's the most important thing. The impact, the outcome.
That's impact, because that's the thing. Technology it's a tool, but technology needs to be adapted to the environment.
Exactly.
I always think it's like people don't think things over. They develop products, for instance, that they will oxidize in a very wet environment.
Yeah.
They don't think about the switches, the electricity, the things. You have to think about these aspects, especially if you go off the beaten track, because at the end of the day, what technology can really help is to improve existing processes. We didn't talk much in detail on the pharma side, but pharma, can improve, the time to market, improve the trials, so at one point the volume of the new drugs that will bring into the market, even though they will not be such a big blockbusters, you will have a lot of mini busters, or blockbusters that will make it up. It's a volume game, So I'm sure they will be okay anyway. But the beauty of technology as well is to provide on the access part is that in some cases, it's not about replacing something existing that's not working so efficiently. That will be it. This online pharmacy applications that we see emerging in a lot of emerging markets is because you have moms and pops pharmacies, but there is a lot of areas where there are no service, so people are ordering, These are the first rails of the digital revolution, for so to speak. But then it's like a lot of people have come to the realization that in a lot of places they will not have hospitals anytime soon.
Yeah.
So that's it. And symptom checkers, things like that. So it's the beauty of the technology where you can reach places that otherwise are not going to be serviced at all. So.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not necessarily a case where we're saying, or people involved in these markets are saying that we don't want hospitals. It's more so a case of if building hospitals is the long-term goal, but it's something which is not immediately, like better was possible, how can we, have a short-term solution in the interim to meet that need, whilst we're putting the hospitals in place over time?
Yeah, but also I don't know, like the statistics as well is doctors. There will be millions of doctors retiring in the next 10 years. There's not enough doctors to be replaced or nurses. So we also have an issue of capacity. And even an issue of capacity, if you look at it from a technology perspective, because you need people to run those systems, but you need people to deliver those systems. So we will need to be very, very creative in the next 10 years, because it's a perfect storm, but I also believe that some people are doing things in the right way.
Yeah.
And that's why we need to make sure that we use the technology and apply it in the right way. Drugs, more personalized, but with business models that will be viable for the pharma and life sciences companies involved, but also for the patient and also for the health systems. This can be made possible thanks to technology. We automate, we repurpose the recycling technically. Yeah. We are doing more with less, and then at the same time we will activate the patient to be a piece for us to tell us how they are reacting or reacting pharmacovigilance. The promise is that, we're activating the patient. So if done in the right way, it will be amazing. But as you know, you and I know, execution can kill the cat.
Execution is very, very important. I definitely agree. I think there are some challenges within the space, but I am super optimistic, and I think that some of the advances that we're seeing, some that you touched upon and mentioned in AI, for example, even for example in the space of like preventative medicine, some of the new technologies which is emerging, which are allowing us to potentially detect the risks that people have to certain diseases many years in advance, whether that's from the genomics landscape, whether that's, for example, polygenic risk scores determining which populations have a greater risk to certain diseases, so they can live in a way which kind of reduce that risk. Or if you're looking at liquid biopsies, taking like blood samples and doing, for example, multi-cancer blood tests, and effectively with people who are seemingly healthy individuals, detecting cancer up to 4 years earlier than usually would have occurred. I think through some of these new technologies which are emerging, I'm optimistic and hopeful that we'll be able to tackle this not just only from the landscape of when people are already sick, but also even from the other side of before they even get to that stage. Can we really start to approach these populations, meet them in this patient pathway, whilst it's a lot easier to address? It should be an exciting future, I would say. Yeah.
We're getting there. I mean, it's about prevention, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
The predictive nature in some diseases, what I understand, it will be a bit trickier, because even if you can carry something, why does one person know? But that's where comes this context that we term. And everybody in science knows about Hippocrates, but Hippocrates also said millennia ago that it's not the disease that interested him, it was the person that carrying the disease that interested him the most. So unwillingly, unknowingly, he was defining precision medicine. So now we can actually investigate the person that carries the disease, and those triggers, and those biomarkers, those footprints, and maybe then we will find all the answers to different things. I mean, there's some use cases out there that are extremely positive. We are developing already drugs, targeted therapies. So it's working. I mean, somebody, it's a closing remark on this topic, and it's a personal story, but somebody once told me recently, oh, Pilar, I don't believe in precision medicine. I'm alive because of precision medicine. I had a cancer disease. I had targeted therapies. It was I had a 50% chance of being here today with you, not so long ago. And then it's I'm the living proof that targeted therapies work. Just because that receptor, they found a drug 15 years ago, I am alive. Otherwise, I'd be probably toasted. If that had happened to my mother, I should not be around. So it does work. I just want that to be more available to more people.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's the reality, but it does work. I'm the living proof that precision medicine works. So,
yeah.
So.
And not only does it work, it can be extremely impactful because, like you said, it's the difference between life
And death.
and death sometimes,
Yeah.
or in some cases, for example, in the cases of some rare diseases, it could be the difference between someone having no eyesight or seeing. So incredibly impactful, incredibly valuable, and yeah, definitely excited to see more in this space. Yeah, so Pilar, in some of our previous conversations, I know you mentioned something about that in genomic studies, there's data suggesting that they don't necessarily look at the most expansive or diverse, poor, like ethnic backgrounds, and how this could potentially be limiting the effect and impact that some of these studies are driving. Can you talk a bit more about this finding?
Yeah, I mean, that's very good, to digging into that, because I was personally not aware of the extent of the problem. I knew we had an issue with inclusivity, yeah, that was very Eurocentric, but I thought it was going better. But the results show that at the moment, the genomic studies, the vast majority of genomic studies, which is 86%, are made with data sets based on European descent population. Mostly male, but European descent, Caucasian. And this is up from 82% 6 years ago. So we are going backwards, not forwards. So we need to do much better, because at the end of the day, the question is, precision medicine for whom?
Yeah.
Yes? We cannot, at the moment, poverty is what prevents access to healthcare for a lot of people. But what we cannot do is create algos that are bigoted and biased by the design and prevent or discriminate people at algorithmic level.
Yeah, no, it's quite an interesting finding. Do you have any thoughts to like what might be driving this? Is it a case where, for example, some of the kind of companies doing these studies are based in Europe, or is it a case of just something which just hasn't really been kind of noticed or?
I think it's a question of availability of data sets.
Okay.
Because a lot of people are surprised that some countries are using data sets from other countries just because it's more innovators, it's more accessible.
Yeah.
The data, I was looking at some studies, and again, they're not in Nature, but it's kind of, I contrasted different sources. And even in the United States, most of the data sets used come from 3 different states, not from the whole thing.
Interesting.
Yeah? And then a lot of our companies here in Europe are using those data sets.
From the same 3 states.
I read somewhere as well that even Germany was doing a study using data sets from Israel because they could not access their own data. So the thing is like, it's not that people wake up one day and say, I'm only going to do Caucasian because I feel like it. No. It's about the data sets and the availability of the data sets that's making the thing. So how can we become more sensitive about it? We need to include researchers from different backgrounds. It's been proven that when you are from a different background, you're more sensitive to being included or including your cohorts. We need to include patients from different backgrounds. We need to digitize countries, because if we don't have medical data, any data, how can we actually map it against whatever is available? So in Africa, you have companies like 54, I forgot the first part, sorry, that's doing, biobanks, in Nigeria. There's a lot of efforts going on, but what we have to be very, very aware, and why I mention Africa specifically, is because it's probably the most ethnically diverse, but also we have a lot of diversity in Southeast Asia where we don't have a lot of data. So we need to start building those data sets so we deliver drugs and we deliver interventions digitally and not that are relevant for everybody. And I ask a geneticist, does it matter? We do use data sets from another cohort. How different it is, is it, and the answer I got is the most distant the population is, the less likely it will have effectiveness, that treatment will have effectiveness.
I see.
And if you think about it, and it's like there are vast amounts of populations that never been, where we never collected data from, so.
Yeah, but there haven't been, I guess, that much studies.
For example, I mean, I will try to pronounce, please correct me. There was an Uganda initiative, Genomics, that was very successful. And one of the findings, I mean, for instance, they found out that alpha thalassemia, like it's a blood disorder, alpha thalassemia, was, had a biomarker that's usually found, in diabetes, but it was more prevalent in that part of Africa just because it protects against malaria.
Yeah.
So we could be bringing actually the wrong drugs or the wrong, or with the wrong side effects. But I cannot finish this area on inclusion without mentioning half of the world, which is women.
Yeah.
And this is also an area where we are really lacking a lot. We are not studying enough about women's disease. Endometriosis is prevalent in 1 out of 10 women. Still very, very, we don't know much about it. A water bottle is still the best treatment for that. So please, let's do something about it. Yeah. And then, and of course, in pharmacovigilance, how women react to drugs. Why are women the group that has the worst, more side effects or reported side effects to drugs? Because trials were simply not conducted on women until recently. And we have something called hormones, and hormones tend to be very tricky when interacting with drugs. So the same drug for Parkinson's has a different effect on women versus men. In men, they might become a bit more, they might engage more in risky behavior like gambling, etc. In women, it's sometimes the opposite effect. It could depress them. It has a big amount of a big result in the quality of life of those women. The disease is becoming more young, so women are still in the fertile period. So those hormones, we need to study more. We need to bring treatments, for, that are also gender specific.
Yeah, and I think with both of those landscapes and examples, there's definitely potential there, because at the end of the day, it's if we can find out, examine, and identify areas of unmet need where maybe perhaps previously we didn't realize that that need was there, it just opens up a new opportunity for, let's say, a new player, maybe a new either large pharma or smaller biotech to potentially create something valuable to address that unmet need, which both works well for that player from the business side, but also it solves that core problem of addressing that large problem, that large unmet need. So I think it's definitely kind of exciting. It's interesting when kind of a problem or challenge like that is exposed, but it's also kind of exciting in the fact that it means that it's an opportunity for us to deliver even more value.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm kind of puzzled when people say, oh, is this too specific, too narrow, not big enough? And I say, what's not big enough?
Yeah.
We're talking 50% of the population. When we're talking about genomic, we're talking about, most of the population is like, and kind of like Caucasian is a small percentage of the population, You put China and India together, it's 35% of the world's population. Africa will be 25% of the world's population, by 2050. So these are huge opportunities. So I'm very bullish that some new biotechs, I mean, like the one that discovered the RNA, the BioNTech in Germany, they will actually capture that market, and they will drag the rest of the sector with them. Because there's definitely appetite for that. There is definitely need for that. But most importantly, and that's why podcasts like yours are very important, there is awareness of that. People are aware. So if you are a science student, if you are somebody who wants to bring, innovation to there, it's like, there are big problems to solve. Let's focus on those as well.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely happy to be part of that journey of increasing awareness of some of these areas where more can be done. And hopefully one of the viewers we may potentially be working on one of the solutions for, for some of these problems. Yeah.
And I would say AI needs you. Sorry, I could not resist.
It's true. Before I ask you if you have any additional kind of thoughts and insights for the audience over there, could you please explain if someone wants to contact you, iExpand, or also is interested in pre-ordering or purchasing your book, where's the best place to find you?
Well, these days you find me a lot in LinkedIn, so I will share the details with you.
Yep.
But also, for those of you who like to express interest on the book should come sometimes in Q1.
Nice.
I always say there's dog years and there's books years. Books always tend to last a bit longer. But it should be published in the first half of 2023. I will share with you a QR. But by all means, reach out even just to say hi. I'm always very glad to meet peers in the field or anybody who feels so passionate about science and digital health as we do.
Perfect. Yeah, I will definitely be sharing the details and links to both the LinkedIn page and also the book once it's launched. It should be a very fun and interesting book to read. For everyone who's listening to this through podcast streams, thank you so much. And if you're watching this online on platforms such as YouTube, please do like, comment, share, subscribe, all the usual stuff. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon with another episode of the Life Sciences Trends with Alan. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the Life Sciences Trends podcast with Alan. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. And look forward to seeing you all in another episode sometime soon.